Hey guys, Dan here with Battlefield Curator. Last week I came out with a video about my thoughts on the PSA STG-44. There were some things that people didn't like and there could be some foreseeable problems. Let's go over some of the issues that might be present when these start rolling out, if they even start rolling out. Before we get started, I'd ask that you pulverize that like button and subscribe if you haven't. It really helps out. Thanks. Alright, so the first foreseeable problem is that it could never even come to fruition. This thing could never even be released. PSA has been working on it. They have a prototype. They're in production still. They've been to SHOT Show twice now with their example, but let's say there's some issues where it just won't come out. One reason why it might not come out is there's just too many problems with it, and they just can't release it because of it. Second reason here is that something happens with the economy or something happens with the political system or the world or the government that pretty much would cease production because, let's say, AR-15s might be in high demand again. So why would they want to spend the rest of the resources to produce this when they have to tool up everything and just pump out AR-15s as fast as they can? So there could be those kinds of issues. They could just be sitting on it and have a problem and just not try to work out the bugs all the way, and it just might sit around and they might just not get around to fully finishing it. Could be a false promise, like some people remember the MP5 that they promised and it hasn't come out yet. Granted, they have come out with the M16A1 or the M16 series, so you're talking like XM16E1 all the way to like CAR 15s and stuff. Those were actually pretty good. Those are legit. I haven't heard too many problems with those. Well, that just proves that PSA has fulfilled their obligations and their promises for releasing some things. So, and seeing how far along they are in production of these STG-44s, I doubt that they will not release them. All right, the second thing here is the design. Yeah, this thing from afar looks really cool. It looks like a STG-44, but when you get a little closer, you'll notice that the lines aren't the same. The magazine's not the same. The material it's made out of is not the same. There's a lot of polymer parts on this PSA STG-44. And the color of this is not even the same as a real STG-44 would have been. It just doesn't look right. Maybe if they did a Cerakote job with battle-worn finish, it might give it a little bit more historic look, which I would definitely recommend PSA come out with some really good-looking Cerakote jobs for this thing. They drop in a HK trigger pack. Well, obviously the real STG-44 had a very complex trigger system. They cut costs by putting in that trigger pack, as well as using polymer parts, which are easy to make these days. Back then, you gotta think, the cost of labor was really low, so, and the government was funding a lot of this production and research and development, and you had a lot of smart brains working on them. This is PSA, it's a private organization. What do you have? You've got to look at profits, you've got to say, hey, we need to make some profit off of this. So they're gonna cut costs where they can so they can make a little bit more in profits. So the foreseeable problem here is that people wouldn't really want it if it is not 100% or even 90% authentic. What other weapons have we seen that are not 100% accurate reproductions? Let's think about the GSG MP40. The GSG MP40, it's got a lot of polymer parts. Some of the shortcuts, you can get a closer look at it, the shortcuts that they took to make this thing. There's a problem where the charging handle pops off. And yeah, so this thing is definitely not anything like the original. Also, it doesn't even have a folding stock due to some laws in the States, of course. But it is an affordable reproduction or copy or look-alike, as some people would say, of MP40. Well, I think that's where PSA is kind of going with this. They're not trying to make something that's 100% accurate so they can save some money, but at the same time, they want something that's a look-alike that will suffice in that role. All right, my third foreseeable problem here is the price. They've been saying that this thing is gonna be a little costly. So if it's north of 2K, maybe almost 3K, I don't think you're gonna have a lot of demand for it, especially if it's not very close to being historically accurate. You're gonna have people that say, I don't wanna pay that much for something I might take to the range a few times a year, maybe just one time a year, and it'd just be a huge paperweight. I could go and buy my AR-10 and put some really cool scopes and stuff on there, and that's $3K right there. Now, if it's priced too cheap, like maybe under $1,500, you're gonna have a pretty high demand, I think, for these. And people are just gonna buy them and they're gonna have a hard time producing them and keeping them in stock. And their profit margins are gonna be really low. So they have to kind of even it out. Like, where is the price gonna make it to where they're profitable and they can, put sales on, they get sales on there, maybe have a Christmas sale on them or something, or, you make it to where the consumer is happy about it. They gotta make it a win-win for the consumer and themselves. So they gotta figure out that price range. So people are estimating around 2K. All right, and the fourth foreseeable problem here is Gen 1 problems. That's right. Issues with feeding or issues with stuff breaking. This is a Gen 1. People know that the first generation of things that get made usually have some kind of problem or a few problems. PSA has been known to have Gen 1 problems on some of their stuff that they've sold in the past. So this is kind of foreseeable that the MP44 that they're going to release is going to have at least one issue. Some people might say, okay, well, I'll let people buy the Gen 1s, do their YouTube videos on them, and then I'll wait for a Gen 2 to come out or a Gen 3 to come out. That way they iron out all the bugs. Because what people don't really want to do is pay a whole bunch of money for something that's just going to break 6 months later after 3 or 4 times at the range. Well, those are my thoughts. What are you guys thinking about this PSA STG44? Let me know in the comments section. If you like this kind of content, be sure to pulverize that like button and subscribe for the algorithms. It really helps out with the channel. And as always, be sure to learn history and curate history. Make it a great day.